Welcome to Momentum Monday. Today is December 13, 2020. Howard, happy Hanukkah.
Thank you. Fourth night. You know what they say now is the new Hanukkah, 8 nights of SPACs.
Yes,
Eight nights of IPOs that double.
exactly. Of
Did
Airbnb.
you get me an IPO that doubled, Ivan? Did you get me an allocation?
I'm the wrong guy to ask about that.
You're doing a lot of volume. No one, IB doesn't give out any allocations, do they?
I haven't tried.
No, you should. Free money, baby.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
You have to ask for it. No one's going to hand it to you. All right,
Yeah.
give me your IB number. I'm going to demand it. All right, take us through what's going on.
All right, let me share my screen. Well, in the past week, the indices kind of consolidated the recent gains. A little bit pullback to the rising 20-day EMAs, exponential moving averages. So that's normal for a bull market. It's normal to have those pullbacks. Mm-hmm. But under the surface, the price action continues to be extremely hot. Last week, we saw the hot money kind of move to biotech. We saw quite a few biotechs doubling in a week. It's like every single week, we have a different industry that is doing really well. I mean, 2-3 weeks ago, it was electric vehicles. A couple weeks ago, it was about the SPACs. And then last week, it was about biotechs. And then especially the ones in
oh my goodness,
in the gene editing space, they've been extremely hot. The CRISP, Nutella.
Yeah, CRISP one I've been long. It's just beautiful.
Like yes, a lot of hot action in small, in not only small cap but also mid cap biotechs, and also.
Yeah, take a look at the weekly. I mean, XBI broke out, which I don't think is equal weight, but then that the IBB is really broke out finally.
Yeah, both of them have broken out.
No, but IBB, if you look at it on a weekly, really just.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know if that's good or bad, but I mean that does not look. The components look a little more extended than the indexes do.
Yeah, it's a sign of risk appetite, and regardless the fact that so many of the mega caps continue to underperform. You know, Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, they just cannot sustain a breakout.
People are taking their capital out of the indexes right now. Like maybe, I don't know if it's the beginners or the people are taking their money out of SPY and buying individual stocks. They're like, why do I want to own the index, which is up 10% when I can make 100%? I mean, you can't blame people. Like, it's so funny. The media continues to just talk about how stupid people are. And the real story is central banks. Central banks have not shut the faucet off. And what would you want people to do? Like, so people are doing what you would expect when the central bank is just printing money. And so what's happened now is they've taken their money out of FANG. This is probably why we're probably near an end to this run. But who knows? Like midweek, I was like, whoa, I really was getting nervous. But then to see Disney break out at the end of the week the way it did made a lot of sense, right? Like no one's in this, including me. This was an 8 to 80 stock of mine, you know, right up until April or May, and I gave up because I wanted to move my money digital. Well, it turns out these are under-owned now. And so no one owns Disney. No one's, you know, except the employees and people in the S&P, but everybody had rotated out of Disney, including me, into Spotify, Netflix, Amazon. And so Disney could just, if it goes on to carry a digital multiple, I mean, it could double. So, you know, and then the semiconductors, I mean, this is like, the action is like we're early in a cycle.
I guess you're correct. I mean, if you're looking to make 10% in a week or 20, you're not going to make it in Apple, owning Apple or Amazon. And since we've seen even bigger moves, it's just kind of normal to see people speculate with smaller caps. And by the way, not all large caps are doing bad. I mean, you already mentioned Disney breaking out to new all-time highs. And last week we also saw Starbucks also
Yeah.
breaking out to new all-time highs, and both of them are again kind of riding the coattails of the potential changes of a new vaccine, I guess. Very interestingly, we're starting to see like the old school car companies also doing very well. And last week,
Toyota, you saw, broke out. Yeah.
Toyota made a new all-time high.
That is not insignificant. I mean, I'm not a fan.
That's a major
But
breakout.
That is just a 15-year breakout. There's so much pent-up money and demand ready to buy shit, right? Like even me with a Tesla, like it's, or golf membership or whatever, it's just so much money lying around. I'm not saying for everybody, it's hardship, right? Like if you're a mom and pop retailer, it's only getting worse, with the states closing down. So it's like comedy though. You can't ask me to put myself in the position of someone that I can't, that I'm not in. The people that I hang around with are just endlessly talking about stocks. And what's so funny is the media is making fun of those people, but those people are being told that they're idiots for holding their money in cash. So they're speculating. And so what's interesting, the people that are speculating can really afford to speculate. Now, I don't know what's going to happen at the tail end of this, or if Friday was the end, but I just doesn't, it was midweek. I was like, oh my God, this isn't going to end well. But by Friday, seeing some of the action in, like you said, Toyota and Disney, Nike, Starbucks, it's just, there's just a lot of action. So for the next 2 weeks, you're going to hear DoorDash is the same market cap as an insurance company, or Airbnb is worth more than the hotels, which is not the story, right? That hasn't been the story since the cloud began. I'm not saying Airbnb will do good or bad from here. I wanted to buy it if it didn't have a pop. But yeah, there's the cloud ETF. I mean, breaking out. So even without Google, and, I don't know, we could overthink it, but the froth is there. Like if you look at the IPO ETF, there was more money. That was a thin ETF in March. Remember, I brought it up in our Momentum Monday in March, saying if you really wanted to, buy the future, you just go buy this ETF. And I remember people saying, oh, it's too thin. No one owns it. Well, it's done a lot better than the NASDAQ, even the QQQ, right? It's up 300%, this basically version of the NASDAQ. And so this is where the speculation lies. Now people are like the most money ever coming into this ETF. So this is for people that are lazy, not in a bad way necessarily. Although if you're buying it Friday, I think you're being a little lazy. But this is a way now that these guys have done a great job at Renaissance with the IPO tweets and SPACs and building a brand. And this is what happens. It's just how people, and same with Hack, the security ETF. I mean, that's breaking out itself. So there's just a lot of pin action. And I think as nervous as I am, the media sentiment is so like cynical and almost mad. I don't know who they're mad for, but people should be thrilled that there's all this speculation going on. That's what we need to come out of a low growth era. Now we got to figure out a way for the country to get open again. And that's really still the wild card. Like, I think everybody's lying about how the vaccine will take 4 months and everything go back to normal. I think, I'm not sure of that. And that's
maybe it's not going to be 4 months, but maybe 8, 12 months. It usually takes, 2 times.
Right, well, we're pricing that in already. You're saying 12 months, Ivan. We're pricing that in right now. So the market should be due for a correction at some point here. So people need to still remember.
Well, 10, 15% corrections are normal. They happen every year, and they're usually buying opportunities. But the fact is we're seeing stocks like Disney and Starbucks and Toyota breaking out to new all-time highs on basically, not really super encouraging news or anything exciting. I think it just shows that the market is in a good mood and is just willing to react favorably to almost any news. if the market was in a sour mood, as it usually happens during bear markets, then it's the opposite. The market is looking for the slightest reason to sell off. But now we're seeing the opposite. You know, I'm not saying be complacent. You know, keep in mind that bull markets correct through sector rotation, but just pay attention to where the money is flowing, and the money it's not exiting the market. Every week it's just finding a new place to go to.
Yeah, I was showing people Adyen a couple of weeks ago, ADYEY, which is finally starting to get the pop for what I think.
ADY?
ADYEY. Yeah, Adyen. Yeah. So if you look at this, all the news is going to be about Stripe for the next 6 months. And Adyen is basically Stripe for the rest of the world. Wow. And yes, it's had a great run. This is an Amsterdam company, but you know, you could see, I was starting to talk about it last week on my blog and bought some in the 30s. This is the new MasterCard. This is the new Visa, Stripe. And so this is going to, you know, it's hard to buy. It's not hard to buy. It's a pink sheet. It's an ADR, but it's really one of the fastest growing companies in the world. And obviously it's not undiscovered, but it's undiscovered by Americans because Americans only talk about Square and they only talk about, you know, they only talk about Stripe. Stripe's a private company and they're talking about Stripe being a $100 billion company. Well, this is a bigger company.
67, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a bigger company that's been around, I think just as long, if not longer. So, you know, the rest of the world has some great companies if you do the work. And what you're going to see here is a lot of storytelling over the next 6 months. This is what happens in a bull market. People start telling good stories. What's this one?
So last week I mentioned it's also in the same space as the one that you just mentioned. It's PaySafe. It's a SPAC that's going to merge with PaySafe, also a payment company, online payments. It's big in gambling, in esports. And it's supposed to, they're supposed to merge at about 10 billion valuation. So that's another one that broke out last week. We talked about it last week. It's an interesting SPAC to keep an eye on. I think it can double. Eventually.
It can double. Listen to you, big shot, think it can double. Be careful.
There's always risk, obviously.
That doesn't sound like Ivan language, but yeah, you've had some hits, so it's fun. But you know, stocks doubling, you and I know how rare that is. Hope it happens for you, but you know how rare that is. Even though you've been hot. What else was I thinking that really caught my attention? China's not moving. It's interesting to see Baba, like what if there's going to.
Many companies are moving the US ADRs. They're just selling the US ADRs and buying the Hong Kong shares of the same companies, just because there is some risk that.
I'm saying Jack Ma pissed off, you know, Chinese government and Alibaba, which I'm long into, is going nowhere. The one interesting stock that I thought Ivan finally broke out was Twitter.
Yeah.
It's a laggard. You know how much I hate it, but I feel like, how do you not own it? There's something going on. I mean, if they got anything half right, what's the valuation?
40 billion, 41.
Now let's pull up Snap, which I just did a distribution deal.
80
yeah.
billion.
So if I was to do anything speculative right now, as much as I hate the management and the execution over at Twitter, I think they have, you know, about a month ago, they announced Twitter a knockoff to a VC-backed company called Clubhouse, which is in the audio space. And I think asynchronous audio and video and a nicer web. No one thinks Twitter can pull this off, and I'm sure at their size, it'll be very hard to pull off a nicer type of conversation. But if they can launch a proper audio product, Twitter, that may be a catalyst to take that to a kind of Snapchat evaluation. So I think about Snap and I'm like, okay, I was bullish. It's more than doubled. I'm riding the trend, but that's what Twitter looks like. Now with Twitter also, what's interesting is same thing I felt with Farfetch back in the day when it was breaking out. It could be the last, I mean, no one's left in Twitter, Ivan. I know it's not at an all-time high, but no one from 2015 is left. very few people are left, right? Like that washout killed all the, people flushed out over those 2 years in the bottom. So what's interesting about Twitter to me is, the elections are over, Trump is going to be kind of a footnote, guy screaming in the corner now. All attention will be on not him. I mean, he'll get attention, but he won't be able to move markets the way he toyed around with it before. And so with Twitter, everybody thinks that would have been the end. Peak Twitter was Trump. And I just think with the stock doing what it's doing, it may have a few surprises. Also, but it's also the last stock to seemingly break out. So I'm saying it wouldn't surprise me if the whole market rolled over, but at the same time, if the market doesn't roll over, I think this plays catch up, that relative valuation catch up to everybody. So
yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, it's a new idea. And they're supposed to, 2021, make a buck. So, whether you play it with calls or sell some puts, that's something that I would look at. Any other unique ideas that you're looking at? I mean, I have no short setups. Do you have any short setups?
It depends on your time frame. For example, last week I mentioned on Twitter that Snow was kind of setting up for a pullback. Here it kind of pulled back 40, 50 points since their I think their expiration is coming up this week.
I think that's it. But at 300, I'd probably be the first time buyer.
There's a lockup expiration coming up soon, but obviously it went up a lot, and at some point it's normal for a stock like this to.
Yeah, people don't understand the company. People are building now tools and platforms or data products on top of Snow. So it's early days for Snow, valuation aside. Let's take a look also at Twilio that broke out, which I've been long forever. And I think what's interesting there is, it's not a small company, but, and not, I don't know, 3 bazillion times earnings. But if we look at another company in that space that does it for video, API, that's started to get some legs. It's been public. Yeah. It's been public for a while. You could start to see some speculation there as it approaches earnings, but that's Twilio for video. And then the other one that's interesting that I've been following is, having a senior moment here, is Twilio, Tencent, just trying to go through my head. Elastic. Yeah, it's really, the 3 open source companies just are setting up over and over again. So there's Elastic, there's Mongo, and Okta. Really the only 3 open source plays, and I don't know. They look really good, man. And again, they ain't cheap. So again, this whole show should be like, hold your nose. But the setups are good. The backdrop is good. It's going to be a very light traded Christmas. The GOP continues to lose lawsuits. The transition is happening. Obviously the next big news is the election, I guess the Senate election in Georgia.
No.
So there should be some volatility as we head towards that. But it seems like they keep promising more money coming to people. You got the vaccine being delivered. You've got plenty of sarcasm and cynicism and negativity. So there's fuel for this. And there's plenty of money on the sidelines.
Yeah, there's always money on the sidelines. So
there you go.
A lot of FOMO. So
FOMO. So have a great week. I think we've covered enough.
Yeah. Have a great week, Howard.
All right, everybody.
All right, bye.